Hey everybody, my name is Landon Ritterling, and today we're going to be covering my World Studio submission. We're going to be looking at Patrick Jordan's book, Designing Pleasurable Products. This book is very interesting for designers like us because it pushes really interesting ideas concerning the pleasures of products. Jordan breaks up his ideas of pleasure into 4 different categories. The first is physio pleasure, socio pleasure, ideo pleasure, and then psycho pleasure. And each of these will interact with the product and interact with the end user, and oftentimes lead to whether or not the end user will purchase the product or not. So it's very interesting to consider the interplay of these when looking at a product. When considering an iPhone, the physio pleasure is probably the easiest to be concerned with. Physio, as in physical, is how it feels in the hand. It's the physical interaction of a product. How does the ergonomics of the product interact with the end user, and is it a positive interaction? Many times when ergonomics are a key factor in design, this can be the selling point for the end user. And it's probably the easiest to understand. The second pleasure is the socio pleasure. And this is how people's perspectives are interacting with the product and you having the product. Something with a very high status behind it. But one could relate it also to his iPhone again. Many years ago, iPhones were considered a very high luxury item, whereas now they're more ubiquitous. But Apple does have many products that are considered very desirable, such as a new MacBook or maybe an Apple desktop. And so you can see how these sort of ideas play in the individual's mind when purchasing a new product. Is this something that's going to make you feel like you have a higher status? The third pleasure we'll look at is probably a little bit more different. This is the psycho pleasure. These are the gears in your mind that are turning with your product. So if I were to relate this to my iPhone again, I could say that I listen to podcasts on my iPhone, and when I'm jogging or when I'm doing something menial, I can listen to something and learn as I'm doing something else. And in that sense, it's interacting with my psyche. It's interacting with the way I think and my cognitive abilities. And you have to consider that as well when designing a product. How is that going to interact with somebody's mind? Is it going to help them improve in a certain way? Oftentimes, this can be the defining factor behind a product's purchase, such as audiobooks. Though not a tangible product, they are digital, and they do have a strong link to this particular pleasure. The fourth pleasure, and probably the most difficult to explain, is the ideo pleasure. This is your worldview, your ideology, what you bring to the table before you've purchased a product. This could be anything from religious views, political views, and so on. A good example might be the sustainability of a product or the sustainability of a company that produces the product. Is the production of the product green? Is it friendly for the environment? This can sometimes be a deciding factor with a product, especially in furniture. Oftentimes there are cradle-to-grave or cradle-to-cradle design requirements for particular types of products, such as chairs, and this could be a selling point for the particular buyer. In summary, there are 4 principles of Jordan's book. The 4 different pleasures: the physio pleasure, psycho pleasure, ideo pleasure, and socio pleasure. Each of these will have an interesting interplay with the product that the end user is looking at. And in some cases, 1 or 2 of them might be the primary factor behind the purchase of an item. So next time, designers, as you're out looking at a product, consider these different pleasures and figure out if a product has actually pulled it off pretty well. Figure out which one exactly they're going for. I hope this has been interesting. Have a good night.